at what point is this dangerous? And I've been in some spots where I'm like, okay, no, let's just call it quits. And I'm like, no, let's not call it quits and get through the duration of this and teach yourself that you can do it. And regardless of the given scenario or environment, just when you think it's hard, rather than quitting being your first action, you saying, no, screw this, I'm going to keep going. And that's what builds mental resilience and mental toughness. So you just have to do hard things. And I think you got to do them over and over. Name's Anthony Alberti, 48 years old. I live in Idaho. I've married 21 years with 3 boys. I have twins that are 11 and older boy that's 13. I've been a chiropractor for 20 years. Grew up playing sports since I was 6 years old through high school. Had the opportunity to play in college and just kind of hung up the cleats. Grew up hunting waterfowl and birds a lot where I was in kind of the Central Valley area. And then in college, I started racing snowmobiles, did that professionally for a couple of years, and then rode in snowmobile movies for 15 years. That's where I met my buddy Chris. Then about 10 years ago, I really got into big game hunting, which morphed into like endurance hunting / hiking events and even ultra marathons. And for me, it's just always looking for, playing sports as a kid, you had that constant competition, obviously against others and with yourself. And I wouldn't say I'm an excessively competitive person, but I mean, I want to be a little bit more than average in everything I do. So yeah, I'm always finding ways to challenge myself and to push myself physically and mentally. And it's a big debate which one's tougher. I'd say probably mentally is the bigger one. So that's kind of my story, and just living the dream out here in Idaho in the West. And literally every weekend I try to get in the mountains, whether it's hunting, dirt biking, snowmobiling, ultra running, and as my kids age, trying to get them involved in it. And they are. So it's, yeah, just awesome stage of life. And every day is exciting. And honest to goodness, like every weekend, it's like, okay, cool. What are we doing this weekend? Where are we going? And what's next? Yeah. What's over that next ridge? Yeah.
You said something that kind of brought me back to when I did my marathon. You say what's harder, the physical part or the mental part? And somebody, I don't know who it was, but they said that your legs will get you most of the way, but when your body starts to give up, you have to have that mental capacity or that mental endurance to,
Sure.
pull your body along and get you through the rest of that. And it sounds like a lot of your stories, a lot of the hobbies that you do are kind of doing that, right? You're challenging and pushing the limits of both, and having that mental strength can kind of pull you through anything.
Yeah, for sure. It's true. And this is a common theme today. I mean, there's a lot of podcasts now out talking about this, and you got guys like like Cam Hanes and David Goggins that everyone's familiar with, and they're talking about mental toughness and this whole idea around it and how far we can push our bodies. And it's good. I mean, I think maybe people can become obsessed with it, but like I mentioned earlier, it's one thing to use that in your physical challenges, but I think it helps roll over into your personal life and family life and work life when things get tough. Not just, hey, I just ran 70 miles, I don't know if I can do another 5, but it's like, hey, stuff just kind of went wrong at the house or at work. And like, when you've put yourself in stressful situations and you've calloused your mind and your body and your heart, those day-to-day stresses really aren't that anymore. Like even my staff goes, God, you never get upset or stressed about anything. It's like, well, nothing's life threatening. Like, I've been in some bad situations where I'm like, oh boy, hopefully I'm having dinner with my wife and kids a week from now. But yeah, I think it's good for you. It's good for you. And sure, a lot of it's physical and you have to put in the work. There's no, as like running the marathons, like it's volume and time, and that will grow with the more time you put into it. But mental is one that, yeah, it's just as hard. I think it's harder because your mind controls your body. I mean, I know that just anatomically and physically from what I do as a profession, but and the Navy SEALs have talked about I think it's a 40-60 rule or 60-40. When you think you're 40% done or 60% done, your body's telling you you're done. You still have that much left in the tank. Like, your brain wants to protect us. Like, we have things ingrained into our body to protect us. We don't have a check engine light like if my EGTs are too high on my truck because I'm running it too hard, there's a check engine light so I don't blow up the motor. Well, our brain does the same thing. Like, it redirects blood. It causes pain so you don't hurt yourself, but rest assured there's still more in the tank. Not that you want to always dig into that, but when you need to, it's there. And that's the challenge I'm always looking at. And it's interesting with the right sleep and diet and exercise, what the body can do. Even at 48 years old, it's like, damn, that is cool. And that's like what I said earlier. I mean, you have professional athletes that are in their 40s, which was unheard of, a decade ago or 2 decades ago. So it's neat, the advances we're making. And, I think it needs to be done reasonably without putting yourself in harm's way. Yeah.
Yeah, I think about that often when I don't know, I'm stressed out about the kids, or this week they're both sick and they've been intolerable, like just bickering, needy. I don't know. And then you think about, hey, I did a marathon, or hey, if somebody can run 100 miles, I can, suppress my emotions for a minute and deal with the kids and be a good dad. And I do think about that often, and it resonates throughout the rest of my life. But you just went on a big hunt, and it sounds like there was, some type 2 fun involved with that. And you kind of take a different hunting style than most people. So maybe you can go ahead and tell this story and kind of what went good, what went wrong with that whole thing.
So I hunt at Idaho every year, and I put in for several different states, about 10. And this year I was able to hunt Nevada and Montana. And I was successful in Nevada early, and that was great. But this recent one was to Montana. So I literally left my office at 6 p.m. on Wednesday night and drove straight to Montana. So I got there at 1 or 2 in the morning, slept for a few hours, and met this guy up north that was taking me in on horseback. There was some private lands in there where you had to be with someone to cross this land. So I hunt alone generally, unless I'm with my kids. I find it, I like being alone, but I mean, I love being with my kids and my friends, but I don't have to worry about anybody else. I don't have to be concerned about trying to help someone else. It's just all between me, myself, and the mountain. So we got on horses that morning at 9 or 10 a.m. and packed in a couple hours. And this guy dropped me off and said, okay, I'll see you in 5 days, and send me a message on the inReach if you need anything. Now, I've hunted Montana before, but not this particular area up in the Bob Marshall. And I had heard there's a lot of grizzlies. And I've been around bears before, but not grizzlies. And unfortunately, a grizzly had gone after someone the week before, right where I was. So, that was kind of on my mind, but I was like, I'm not worried about it. But, riding horseback in, there was fresh snow. There was a set of just monster grizzly tracks walking right through the meadow where I was getting dropped off. So I'm like, oh my goodness. So he dropped me off, and I've spent, I'm sure 100 nights alone in the woods. And just sleep on the side of a mountain in a deer or elk bed in a bivy sack, no tent, and cooking right there. And I don't even think twice of it. Usually I have a firearm with me at all times, but I've had animals outside my tent sniffing around and stuff, and just yell at them and scare them off. And I've never, ever been spooked. But this hunt was the first time in my life where, I was kind of on edge. Probably prayed a lot more on a nightly basis than normal in that hunt. Just hoping I make it home. So it was the second day I hiked up into a basin and look, I was deer hunting. And I came across a grizzly going across the ridge up above me at about 600 yards because I ranged him, but the wind was going my direction, so I wasn't worried about it. You know, everyone talks about how quickly animals, especially grizzlies, can cover ground. So I didn't want to get him to catch my wind and get curious and come down. So I watched him for a while. Meanwhile, I'm still trying to hunt the other direction. Finally, he goes up over the top of the basin. So I'm like, okay, that was good. And then not 20 minutes later, there's another one. So I'm keeping an eye on him. And then across the canyon, there was a monster grizzly. I wish I filmed him. I mean, he drug his belly when he walked. I mean, he's just so big. So yeah, I was kind of on edge because of that. But you know, I tried to situate myself in a position where the wind was at my favor and I wasn't walking into big dark timber pockets where I couldn't see, you know, a few hundred yards ahead of me. So I brought a electric fence that I had around my tent because I've been told that those can be beneficial and work, and I've never used one. And so I had that set up around my tent, and it was so windy when I was there. There's 40, 50-mile-per-hour winds that if something was outside my tent, I couldn't hear it. So at least I wouldn't know before it happened. So I ended up spending a few days in there alone and hunting. And on day 4, I found a deer I finally wanted to shoot. Unfortunately, he was right below the ridge where I saw the big one. I'm like, gosh darn it. And I'd been checking in daily with the guy that dropped me off, and I was going to hike back into a basin where he's like, hey, I've seen really big deer in this basin. Nobody goes in there. And I had to walk past the ridge where the big grizzly was. So, man, I was up all night thinking about that. I'm like, I'm just going to do it and I'll keep my eyes peeled. And if one comes in and gets aggressive, then I'm going to handle it. But I ended up shooting one just below that. And it was a nice buck. Unfortunately, it was open, kind of a old burn where I could see and had good visibility. And that was my plan. I didn't want to shoot something next to a dark timber pocket. And the wind was at my favor. So I got that thing quartered up as quickly as I can. Normally I'll sit there and turn on some music and have a little bit to eat and do a full photo session. I mean, I was taking photos quick. And it all worked out. And of course, when I started packing that thing back to camp, I mean, my eyes are peeled because now I got meat on my back and blood all over me. And just, you know, I got my rifle on my back and my handgun pistol on my chest. So yeah, it was a very unnerving time in the woods where, and that's where my heart is, in the woods, and I'm constantly drawn to the mountains. But that one had me on edge, and you know, thinking about my family and kids and questioning, okay, have I gone too far with this one? Outfitter came and picked me up that night, and it was finally when I got back to my truck that I was like at ease, where I didn't feel like I was constantly watching my back. And man, the first first bar I found in town was steak and whiskey. I stopped and enjoyed that. So that was a really cool hunt, but don't think I would go back into that kind of country alone again. Just, it's nice to have someone watching your back. But the funny thing is, not even not even a week later, not even probably a couple of days later, I'm already trying to figure out, okay, how do I go back? You know, and preferably with someone. That I'd rather be alone everywhere else, but like, yeah, I want to go back. Like that, just something drew me to it. Not necessarily the danger. I mean, there is a perverse attraction to danger, if you would, or things that are kind of hard or risky. Because once you accomplish them, you're like, oh, dude, that was cool. And I found that when I snowmobiled and made movies, like just doing things that I really probably shouldn't have, but they were so exhilarating. And I find that with kind of with hunting too and running races. So yeah, I'm already planning on how to get back there and which one of my 3 or 4 best buddies is going to come with me, if not all of them. Yeah. But yeah, I was happy to get home and get hands on my wife and kids. That's for sure.
That's great. I've been elk hunting one time and nobody was successful, but it was a total riot. And we had like close encounters with black bear and stuff like that, but not grizzly. I mean, that is spooky. And the fact that you're going alone, that's something that I don't think a lot of people do they?
I have a lot of buddies that, I mean, of course, I'm attracted to guys that do the same thing I do. So the guys that I'm affiliated with, if you want to say that, through our hiking competitions and backpacker, my good friends. I mean, a lot of them like to do solo stuff.
Okay.
Well, some of them. And around here, it's not a big deal. I mean, I've run into bears and just yell at them and mountain lions and stuff. But yeah, in grizzly country, probably not a lot of people alone. And you go to Alaska and they're everywhere. And I think I hadn't spent time around them, so I wasn't super comfortable. And I wouldn't say that I'm that much more comfortable now. I think the fact that literally a week before, the guy that was in there had a grizzly come up within 30 feet of him and not run away when they shot over it and was getting aggressive. That just stood in the back of my mind. A little part of me almost wishes I didn't know that, because I'm not going to say it took away from the fun, but damn, I was just nervous the whole time and starting to ask myself, like, okay, did I finally go too far with this one? But you got to be smart and use all the skills you have to make right decisions, which I think I did. I mean, I didn't cook near my tent. I had my food and everything a couple hundred yards away. So I'd come back to camp every night. The wind is whipping. It's obviously pitch dark. And I'd go sit out near this creek bank in the middle of nothing with my headline and just make my food real quick and then go back to my tent at 7:30 at night because it's dark and nothing to do, and just go to sleep. So I got a lot of sleep. That was cool. But yeah, I mean, normally, like I said, I'll be there sleeping on the ground and cooking right next to it, and I don't think twice of it. But those grizzlies, and people have said the ones in Montana are starting to be a problem. At least in Alaska, they have so much food available to them and they're used to seeing people. And I've had a bunch of friends hunt Alaska this year, and they had numerous grizzly encounters daily, all the time, like at close quarters. Um, but I think, yeah, this one was a little different and just being alone. So I like to be alone, but on maybe that one I won't be alone next time.
And it might just be regional thing, because I'm in the Midwest and everyone here, I mean, they hunt alone, but it's not big game. You're not hiking. You're just like sitting in the woods, whatever. We don't have grizzlies. Yep. So maybe it is more common out there and I just haven't really heard of it, but that's cool. And that's, I'm sure you reflect a ton out there, just having that peace and quiet to yourself and you versus nature.
I mean, that's all you really can do when you're out there for 12 hours of daylight or however much you have sitting behind binoculars. I mean, yeah, reflect is the word. I mean, you reflect a lot. I mean, I think about everything when I'm out there: family, kids, life, work. Um, yeah, like we were talking earlier, we're 15 years apart. And you go the different stages of life and with your kids, and the older I get, the less I care about, but the more I care about. So it becomes more focused on what's really, really important to me. And it's really important. And then all the other stuff is just noise. So just different stages of life are interesting, and it's all good, man. It's all good. Same thing with your kids. Like when your kids are young, I remember that just, oh my goodness, I wanted to go stand in front of a truck when the kids are screaming and nothing is making them right. Especially we have twins, and granted, my wife does most of everything, but it's like, okay, I can't feed you, I can't burp you, I can't change you. Like, what else do you want, stud? And you're still screaming. Like, I just want to, yeah, go stand in front of a bulldozer. But now, as my oldest is getting ready to go in high school, I'm like, shoot, man, 4 more years and they're out of here. And there goes my best buddy, and then the two behind him, there goes my other two best buddies. So trying to savor those moments, which is real hard for you to remember right now because you're just in the thick of the hardest part. But yeah, it's all good. And and part of what I do is I think it is a good example for the kids and the boys. I think it's good that they see their father or mother have passion and hobbies. I don't want to be a soccer mom or dad. I'm not. I'm going to go out there and push my limits in everything, with running, with weightlifting, with snowmobiling, with shooting, with hunting, and my kids are going to want to push it. I think being mediocre and average is fine, but if you're given some God-given talents, I think it's wrong to not use them or make the most of them. And not that I do this just for my kids, but I think it's good that they see dad doing this, and they're going to grow into strong young men and older men at someday. And this world needs a lot of that. We got some issues. Hopefully they're getting addressed now, but yeah, we need intelligent, strong men and women. Yeah, but my goal's on my three.
So much of that resonates with me. You talk about wanting to jump in front of a bulldozer. When I was training for my marathon, it was like that was me time. It was, as a, I don't know, as a dad, I feel like I sacrifice every moment of myself for the kids or for the family or for the house. And when I was training for that, that was an allotted chunk of time that I could go out and run for 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And just like dump my problems into this run. Go run out, get that runner high, and just solve the world's problems in my head with no distractions. And then you kind of mentioned that your kids start seeing that. I mean, my kids were there at my marathon, like cheering me on, and they still talk about it. And yeah, it's awesome. And my wife, she busts ass working out most mornings, and when she's not even around, they're just thinking about, hey, can you put on something for me to work out too? Or, they understand the weights, they see all that stuff. And like you said, like they see what you're doing, and it just connects with them, and it becomes a part of that because it's a part of us. And yeah, I love that so much.
Yeah,
I don't know,
it's true. Yeah. So one of my twins, this is his first year hunting, and he's 11. So he killed his first deer, and which was great. And then he killed his first elk last weekend. But part of what I told him was like, hey, you need to be ready to go hiking and this and that. And he by himself is at 6 a.m. in the garage on the treadmill with a backpack that he throws weights in. And I mean, I told him at one point, like, hey, I want you to do this for 6 weeks. Just give him something on paper that just kind of holds him accountable and makes him feel like he's hitting his goals. But he did it a couple times where I just went out there. I'm like, why the hell's the garage light on? Or, what's going on at 6 a.m. And there's Luca out there. I'm like, a boy. It's cool, and that I love seeing that. I'm like, I don't know that I had that drive at that age. And it rolls over. I mean, the physical component's one part of it, but it's going to roll over into how driven they are hopefully with school and work and family and the rest of their life. I think you set a solid foundation for these kids at a young age. It just sticks with them forever. So, and like you're saying, you be a role model for them. And I'm not gonna say they don't know any different, but they that's what they do know. And it's good. It's good for them. Good for both of us.
Yeah, they're sponges. They're going to soak up whatever you're doing, and that's a big part of my motivation. Don't be complacent. Don't be pile of crap. Get off the couch, play with your kids, and they'll soak that in. And as long as you're consistent with it, they'll resonate with that. Just like you're saying.
Yeah,
I mean, he did that, and it didn't even phase him.
Yeah, no, it was great. I actually, ironically, the one I'm referring to, I took him on a hunt last year when he was 10, and it was my oldest, who at the time was 12, and we were elk hunting, and we were going to shoot an elk right at last light. And I had my dad with me, who was 74 also. So, I've got a 10-year-old, a 74-year-old, and then of course my oldest. So I'm feel responsible for all of them. It was about 9 or 10 below the temperature. It was cold. It was just getting dark. And I told my son, like, why don't we just come back and shoot them in the morning? We shoot it tonight. I don't care. I'd stay out there all by night by myself and take care of it. But I've got 3 other people to handle or take care of. And it's just going to get bitter ass cold when that sun goes down. It's already cold. So we're hiking back all the way to the top of the mountain, and my 10-year-old he kind of was weeping a little bit because it was hard. It was cold. We were hiking in snow. It was a steep climb. And he's like, Dad, this is hard. I'm like, and I stayed with him because it was getting dark. We had our headlamps on. And meanwhile, my oldest is already raced to the top of the mountain, and my dad's right behind him. I'm like, buddy, it's okay. This is supposed to be hard. If it was easy, everybody would do it. If everybody does it, that's just ordinary. There's nothing extraordinary about it. And a couple times he stopped. I go, I just want you to remember this because I'm going to talk to you about this later, how hard this is right now. And so we get out, we get to our razor eventually, get out of there and get back into town where we're staying. And we're back in our hotel and, go have dinner. It's nice and warm and everybody's fine. And I go, so remember how hard that was? How was it bad? He goes, no, I guess it wasn't that bad. I'm like, in the moment of things, you're thinking it's horrible. But, even when I've been in bad situations, I just think to myself, tomorrow night or 2 nights from now, I guarantee I'm going to be at home having dinner with my wife and kids. So I'll figure out how to get through this. And that's what I wanted him to learn too. Like, yeah, it's going to be hard and seem terrible. And then on the way home, you're already trying to think, how do we go back and do it again? And that's what type 2 fun is, where it just sucks. And I've done this. Like, I'm never doing this again. This is so stupid. This is a waste of time, blah, blah, blah. And then halfway home, I'm like, all right, where's the next one? And I don't know that everybody's wired that way. Some people are like, yeah, I'll never do that again. And I guess we, are attracted to that. And it's good. It's good for us. So that's what definitely separates people.
That's a really, really good transition because you in the pre-call said that, you finish something and you're immediately thinking of the next thing you want to go to.
Mm-hmm.
So, right now I feel kind of, I don't know, lethargic. Like I'm eating crappy. I don't have anything on the books. I have nothing that I'm training for. I know that next summer I'm going to do another marathon. Might even step it up and do a 50 miler or something. But it's interesting always having something on the calendar to push you and keep you motivated. And I think you're kind of like that with what you do with your hunting and your hobbies and your snowmobiling. Like, what's on the books for you right now?
So this Montana hunt was the last one for me. I had a big one in Nevada earlier this year. I have 2 more hunts with my kids, but those are cool. They're laid back. We're usually successful. It might be a little hard, but we go back into town and get a room every night. But to answer your question, so yeah, nothing else this year. We just pull out the snowmobiles in 2 weeks and start riding. In April, we're going to go back and do the Grand Canyon. Last year we did rim to rim to rim, which is 50 miles and like 12,000 feet. And we're trying to do it twice. And as there was the first few of us that were getting ready to finish, a gnarly snowstorm came in April to the Grand Canyon, and that kind of shut things down because I want to say there was 3 of us that finished at 8 p.m. and it was just starting to snow, and the last of our group came out at 4 a.m. So we were separated by 8 hours. So we didn't do the second half because conditions just went to shit. But we're going back in April, and as long as the weather is right, we're going to try and do that, twice. So essentially 100 miles. The original goal was 48 hours, which that's fine. But for me, I really, really, really want to do it in 36 hours. So I did the first half in 16 hours. I'd like to think I could finish the second half in 20. And I already have some things I would do different, try to save time and be faster. But that's on the books in April. So my training will change throughout the year depending on what I'm doing. December 1st, things will change again in preparation for that. And then in July, we might go do another one where we try and summit these 3 peaks, the 3 highest in Idaho, in a certain amount of time. We attempted that one 2 years ago, and it didn't go well. So yeah, the exposure on those peaks and climbs was different. I still don't think that I like that, but anyways, that's kind of what's out there. Yeah. And I like I was telling you earlier, like when I have an event on the books, like I become obsessed with it. So I don't miss workouts. If I miss a workout, I'm just going to suffer on the mountain, or I'm going to not perform well. My diet, my sleep, my stretching, alcohol, caffeine consumption, I make sure it's in check for training. So, if you put crap in your body, that's what you're going to perform like. Not to say that I don't have a drink or any of those other things, which I enjoy, but yeah, having something on the books really holds me accountable. And then I actually hire a coach. There's a company called Uphill Athlete. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them. They do endurance training for ultra marathons, for people climbing Mount Everest, you name it. And I work with a guy out of Jackson Hole that's awesome, and writes my workouts. And I mean, I could probably at this point figure it out on my own, but having someone to hold accountable to is good. You don't miss workouts. Like if you have a busy day, well, then I'm up at 4 a.m. working out because I'm not going to miss a workout period. So yeah, I like having that something on the books every year. And now I have multiple things on the books.
This is kind of like a personal question, because I don't have something on the books right now, and I am struggling to work out and work on the house and be a family man and all that stuff. I have a freaking habit tracker right here that I haven't even started, but I need to devote a night, or I need to devote time every single night to either work on the house or work on myself. And I find often that doesn't happen. So I guess, like, do you find that if you don't have something on the books, you kind of, fall victim to those easy pleasures, or like any tips and tricks for that stuff?
Well, I started working out when I was 13 years old, and I've never stopped, period. So 35 years later, I've never missed. I mean, unless I was up in the wilderness hunting, but I've never missed working out for more than 4 or 5 days in a row, period, ever, 35 years, period. So it's no different than brushing my teeth every day. You just do it. But if I don't have something majorly, like I might be a little inclined to miss one workout here and there, but I mean, that's few and far between. And I like having different phases where I'm focused on strength and size and gains, or I'm focused on endurance, or a combination of both. But yeah, just knowing that I have an event in April, December 1st, I already know what I'm doing on a Monday. So, or whatever that first Monday is. So I also have an app on my phone called Training Peaks, which a lot of endurance athletes use. Training Peaks. And like I said, I use the Uphill Athlete stuff, and you should look into it. You can buy for $30 a 50K training program, and it gives everything to you. And it's great. And then you put it in your Training Peaks, you have the log on your phone, and if I don't check a box every day, I feel like, oh, I failed. So it's nice to know. And I can go back and look at my results. I'm looking at heart rate. But for you, what I'd say is just go sign up for a 10K. It's nothing. I mean, you could go run a 10K right now without training, but having a little something like that just keeps you accountable. So that's what I would do. But especially when I'm training for a race, my work schedule, I block out in my schedule the 2 hours at lunch that I'm training. I tell the staff, we don't put any patients here. Like if you do, you need to ask permission. Like it better be something really important, because if I don't make time for it, it's just not going to happen. So, or I do it before work, but I deliberately schedule around it. That means I work a lot before and work a lot after, but it's like, nope, this is 2 hours where it's just part of the day, period. So, and I think having that app really helps. So I can see every week, okay, what am I doing? Where are my days off? And yeah, it's just, I need organization. Just fly of the night doesn't work for me. Even when I go on a hunting trip, I'm usually packed a week beforehand. Like I have everything laid out. My wife's like, "What are you doing? You just came home." I'm like, well, I don't know. I'm ready for the next one. So yeah, I just like over preparing. That way I don't get out there and find myself unprepared.
Yeah, I mean, you even mentioned like a electric fence to put on your tent. I've never even heard of that. So there's so many tips and
Yeah,
tricks.
that one, neither had I. That was really funny because I asked the guy, like, "Hey, what's the deal?" He goes, "Well, you're by yourself. It's not a bad idea." So I buy this bear fence and don't know what the hell I'm doing. So I set it up in the backyard one morning, and two of the kids come out like, "What is that, Dad? What is that?" And I'm like, I'm telling them, like, I don't really know if it works. And I don't know if I convinced one, but one decided he wanted to try it to see if it worked, and we figured out it worked. Yeah, it laid him out. So it was really funny. Like, way to go, Luca. Yeah.
So we covered a lot, and there's a lot of ways we can go with this. I think I want to kind of tie this up with just talking about mental versus physical strength. We kind of touched on that earlier in the episode, so maybe I'm getting redundant, but how do you think about that when you're doing a lot of this stuff? And I'll also say, you have these chapters, right? You just said that you have chapters where you're gaining, you're working on physical strength, and then you're working on endurance. And that's something I need to get better at. I've always been an endurance athlete. I ran cross country, track, and I swam in high school. So for me, it's always so easy to just step out the door, start running.
Yeah.
And I worry from time to time that my muscles are going to like wither away if I don't go and pick up those weights and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, working on this mental strength is so profound and can kind of get you through anything in life. And I just want to keep flexing that, keep working on that with these different events so that I'm like equipped for myself and my kids and my life. Yeah, I don't know where you want to go with that. I kind of just rambled for a minute.
Yeah. Well, a couple things. Like the first thing about what you said, for people that do endurance, I mean, it's sheer volume and time. There's no way around that. There's no shortcut. But there is more and more and more evidence that strength training is necessary. And when I'm doing strictly endurance events, it's just 2 days of strength training and 4 to 5 of endurance training. But increasing strength decreases injury. Like that's a proven fact. And these are, exercises designed at lower body strength, leg strength, core strength, and you have to do it, and your performance will be better because of it. So that's, it's I don't think you can have all. You can't be the strongest and biggest in the world and fastest with the greatest endurance. That doesn't exist. That's a unicorn. So I always struggle with a happy medium of like how much of each, and I think I'm starting to get that figured out. But as far as the mental part, we build muscle when we break down muscle and we push it past its limits and it grows back stronger. And the same is true of mental fortitude, where if you do something easy, you're not making yourself any mentally stronger or resilient. So a lot of this started for me when I did my first endurance hike with this hunting group out here. It was 7 years ago, and the goal was to hike 100 miles with 20 plus thousand feet of climbing in 3 days, and then you're self-sustained. You carry whatever you need on your back. So you sleep out there, you carry your food and your water. And my buddy approached me and said, "Would you like to do this?" I'm like, "Why the hell would I want to go hike 100 miles? Like, I got a dirt bike. Why don't we just ride 100 miles? Like, that sounds more fun." But it happened to be in an area that was wilderness and a land closure, so you couldn't ride motorized vehicle. And I'm like, man, I've always wanted to see that area. So yeah, let's do this and train for it. And the training started with just, let's go hike 5 miles and see how we do, and then let's hike 7 and 10, and it just kept going and going and going. Where people saying, "How do you hike for that long?" It's like, well, you just keep hiking. Like that's all there is to it. You get used to it. And then for me, like when I'm alone, I'll listen to podcasts and listen to music, and that just really helps the time go. And then when it's outside, it's really cool. But I started designing routes for myself that were almost impossible. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to climb 10,000 feet in this amount of time. Um, or I had workouts designed for me by whoever that I'm like, this sounds impossible. And you just keep going, when you're halfway through and it's totally sucked, you just keep going. You're not going to die. I mean, for the most part, you're not going to die. So, yeah, through training, I did that. And my thought was, I want my training to be so hard that the event seems easy. The first time I hiked 30 miles in one day, I don't want it to be in an event. I want to know that, oh yeah, I've done this. Now I ran an ultra last year that was 70 miles, and I had never done that in a day. And it worked out. It was fine. But yeah, I mean, I like to over prepare so I know that I can do it. But in doing those things, you just keep realizing, like, you keep pushing your limits, and your ceilings become floors, and you just keep going further and further and further. And people say we use like 10% of our brain. Like, I think that's what I've people say, like, we don't use 100% capacity of our brain. And the same is true of our body. I think we are capable of so much more than we think we can do. And until you push those limits, you never find it. And as far as I'm concerned, I still haven't found that limit. But, you know, um, that kind of rolls over into hunting, where I'm in situations where it's like, God, do I keep going? Do I stay out here? It's snowing. I'm out of water. Like, at what point is this dangerous? And I've been in some spots where I'm like, okay, no, let's just call it quits. And I'm like, no, let's not call it quits and get through the duration of this and teach yourself that you can do it. And regardless of the given scenario or environment, just when you think it's hard, rather than quitting being your first action, you saying, no, screw this, I'm going to keep going. And that's what builds mental resilience and mental toughness. So you just have to do hard things, and I think you got to do them over and over.
And I'm so glad you brought that back to hunting, because with any of this stuff, you're getting to there's so much reward to it too, right? You are suffering, but you're going to see the world in ways that nobody gets to see. And Thanksgiving's coming up. You think of hunting, and I don't know, you kill a deer in Michigan, it's pretty cushy, right? You're sitting in a blind, you got a wood or a propane heater, shoot the thing, you got to gut it, whatever. But then if you actually go through, skin it, process the meat, throw it in your freezer, like, you get that whole appreciation for what that food means and how easy we have it when it comes to just like picking up the phone and ordering takeout. So like there's so many layers to this thing, and like I think every year during hunting how much it sucks when you actually do kill something and have to go through that process, but then you have the reflection after the fact of what that food means to you and what it means to your family and your ancestors and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I was just thinking about that because next week is Thanksgiving, and it's just so timely. I mean, you just killed a monster buck out in the woods, and you had it worse. You had to haul that thing how many miles back to your car or back to
Yeah.
horse?
Yeah. I mean, and the very first time I did that was really, really rewarding, where I was hiked way back in, and, you get all your camp and all your meat, and to the point where you go to pick up your backpack, and I'm thinking, like, it gets so heavy where you can't pick it up. You actually put your pack on the ground, you sit on the ground and strap it around yourself, and then kind of roll over and try and stand up. So once you get to, I find that 115 to 120 pounds is where I start noticing, like, oh, this feels heavy. Like, I'll train just with 80 pounds on the treadmill or around home, and it's not that bad. But around 120, stuff starts to hurt, to where I remember thinking, like, I don't even know how the hell I'm supposed to stand up. And then I'm supposed to hike how many miles out of here? And last year, I killed a big buck up in the Frank Church Wilderness of Idaho, and I was 7.5 miles by myself. And it took me, I think it was 8 hours to hike out. and it was 117 pounds because I weighed it eventually. And by the time I got back, of course it's dark, it's pitch dark. I mean, I have a headlamp, and both of my quadriceps were numb because I was just smoked. And you're getting through this just thinking like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? And then the next day you're just like, you kind of feel like Superman. Like, well, if I did that, what else? What can I not do? When you do it alone, and you have help, it's nice, but you do it alone, you're just it it is rewarding in a way that it's hard to describe. And I think when you do your first ultra marathon or something like that, that's the same feeling when you cross that finish line. You're like, I didn't know that I could do this, and it's just unbelievably self-rewarding. Yeah, and the whole, harvesting an animal by yourself, providing food for your family that you've killed with your hands from field to table, it's cool. It's really cool. And then there's a lot of things in life that will mimic that same feeling. It just mine happens to be hunting in the woods, and I've always been drawn to the woods, whether it's hunting or snowmobiling or dirt biking or just staring at the mountains. Yeah.
Yeah, this has been really fun, Anthony. I feel like you're, what'd you say, 15 years older than me. You're just kind of, I don't know, to tip my hat to you. I feel like if I'm doing this stuff when I'm your age, I will be very happy and very, proud. And that's kind of a big point of this podcast. I get to have people on that inspire me to do stuff and hopefully inspire others to get out there and do these hard things and challenge their mental and physical strengths. Yeah, this is great. Do you have any like shout outs or final words that you want to give the listeners?
Yeah. So, I mean, first and foremost, like my wife, Melissa, like I wouldn't, it'd be hard to do any of it without her because, I don't like leaving the family and the kids, and she takes care of everything and makes it easy and supports me. So she's my, I don't want to say rock, it's so cliche, but she's my everything. Exo Mountain Gear, which makes the best hunting pack in the industry out of Boise, Idaho. That's what I think kind of started this for me. I mean, even in high school, we used to do crazy stuff like this with me and my buddies. We do fishing trips, drive our trucks as far as we could in the woods, get stuck, and then hike in. And oh my God, we'd carry the most ridiculous things. Now everything we have is lightweight, carbon fiber. I mean, I've got so much money and stupid gear. It's ridiculous. But Exo Mountain Gear and Steve Speck, the owner, these guys, every single one of the guys involved is cut of the same cloth. Like all think the same. We all push each other. That's what started this passion, endurance hiking passion, and being around other guys like that, causes you to push further. And I've got a couple buddies that are just total studs. And it's good. I like being, pushed. If you need to hang around people better than you, smarter than you, whatever, tougher than you if you want to get there. So I've got a buddy in Utah that runs ultra marathons that's professional, and he's an inspiration. So yeah, I just, it's being around those types of people. It's awesome. And of course, all my friends are like that because that's what we're, I don't want to say attracted to each other, but that's our common thing. And of course the guys at Uphill Athlete, and Ben and all those guys, they're yeah, it's been a really cool journey. So it's fun. And like you said, it's cool to do this at a certain age. I think it's really cool to do it when you're really young also. If you could do this at 16 or 17, like I have told my kids, like if you do this at 12, can you imagine what you're gonna be like at 40? You're gonna walk on me, dude. Like, be great for your age, not just be. I mean, I think it's really cool when someone does something at a really young age or a really old age. That inspires me. And I ask myself, like, how much longer can I do this? And I look at these, so I hate to say social media influencers because I think that's a stupid term, but there are guys in their 50s that are totally kicking ass. So I tell myself, okay, cool. I got a few years left. But, at the end of the day, it's it's a competition between myself. That's what it comes down to. Like, I don't give a shit if anybody knows what I'm doing or sees it or acknowledges it. It's like, how far can I keep pushing myself? And I'm not ready to throw in the towel. As far as I'm concerned, I'm still getting better. So, and hopefully that just keeps going until my kids pass me, which hopefully isn't too long. Yeah.
Yeah, and you kind of owe it to your kids and your family to keep pushing yourself, because
Yeah.
I think we talked about this on the pre-call, but when you become complacent, when you retire and start sitting on the couch, that's when you start to fade away. And if you're constantly pushing yourself beyond retirement, whatever, there's 90-year-olds that are playing with their grandkids, rolling around on the floor and stuff like that. So that's something I think about often.
Yeah. You keep moving or you start dying when you get to a certain age. And that's kind of my motto. And I'm not even close to ready to throw in the towel. So a long time to go. I want to keep running with these kids and it's funny. A lot of my buddies are younger than me, that I do this stuff with. Actually, she's maybe 40 is the next closest to me. So maybe they're the ones that are keeping me young.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect place to wrap this up. I really enjoyed talking to you. I hope you had a good time, and thanks for coming on the show.
You bet, man. I hope it resonates with somebody. Anybody, feel free to reach out. I mean, I'm not the only person doing this, but yeah, we're just we're capable of doing so much more than we think we are. You just gotta put the work in and push yourself.
Thank you for listening to the Type 2 Fun podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a follow and feel free to reach out to say hello, give feedback, or share your Type 2 Fun story.